Hey guys, welcome back to Regular Secular Mama. I am putting together a 2-video series, like a little mini series, on digital homeschool planning. So I have used both Trello and Notion, and I'm going to do one video on each sharing how I have used them, what I liked about them, and what I don't really like about them, so you can compare. Wrapping up our 5th year of homeschooling now. I've spent about 2 years using Trello for homeschool planning. For a while there, it was the only thing I used for homeschool planning. And then at some point, I also was writing things down in like a paper planner, but using Trello to like keep track of things. So I'll show you a screenshot of my computer and how it looks and how I used it. And I'll also share things that I liked about it, things I didn't like about it. So hopefully you can get an idea of whether or not this will be a good fit for you. So stay tuned. I hope you enjoy this and it helps you out a little bit. Okay, here we are on the dashboard or the home page of Trello once you have it all set up. I am going to try my best not to be all over the place and rambling. If you have any questions, of course, comment down below. I'm just going to kind of go through some of the features of Trello and how I use them when I was organizing our lessons and planning out our weeks. First of all, Trello is organized in what they call workspaces, and each workspace is going to have boards in it. So this workspace, for example, is for the 21-22 school year. We stopped using Trello a while back, but we were already starting on this school year. So I have some things in here from this year that you'll get to take a look at in just a minute. This workspace right here has some things for our homeschool that are not specific to that year. So let's see, what do I have on there? So I have book covers, which is basically just a place for me to stash cards that have book covers on it. Anyway, you'll see that in a minute. This one is kind of like a list of ideas for upcoming subjects or years. These are things I would like to do, field trip ideas, things like that. It's kind of just a place to brain dump that information. I'll show you it really quick, but it's really not super well organized. It's just things that I might want to change next year. These are curricula that we have, that we're using or we were using, and what books come next and which ones I have purchased already. So for example, science, I needed to spiral bind this student workbook and the teacher book in order to get ready for the next school year. I have actually already done that since I stopped using Trello, so I'll check it off, but that's kind of how that looks. And then, for different subjects, just ideas and resources I've come across, and this is just a place to store those in case they will help me in the future. Anyway, back to this main page. So I'm just going to show you some of the boards in this workspace right here for the school year. So in each workspace, you're going to have individual boards that are going to have cards on them in lists. So this first board is just curricula. This curricula board just has lists of the different subjects and different curricula we're using in those subjects, and it just kind of maps out all the lessons and things that are in each book or curriculum. So for example, the first list here is history, and I have kind of listed out all the lesson pieces and things we're going to do for each unit. This was back when I was combining Build Your Library 3 and 5, so I had to kind of renumber things myself just to stay organized. So they don't correspond to their weeks. I'll just show you a quick look at it. All I did was I titled it, I listed out where these lesson resources were coming from. This is Build Your Library, this is River of Voices. These are all the books that we would need for the lesson. Not supplement books, but actual lesson materials we would need to teach the lesson. And then down here is every little task or activity or reading clip that we were going to do for part of that unit. Now I'm not going to show you too much of that because it is copyrighted, information from those resources, but that's kind of how it is set up here. And then of course we have Michael Clay Thompson. This is for my son. He is green. My daughter is red. This just helps me keep things organized. So again, here is us going through building language. Now we're finished with it. But at the time, this is where we were at. Each week I would come in here and just check off the ones that we had finished for that week. And, so I think you get the idea. Some of these didn't actually have anything in it because I didn't really need, to list out the reading passages. Like, I don't need to do that. It just was to have a pretty cover. Here's our math. Again, each lesson listed out. I know which lesson we've completed and which one comes up next. Now, the purpose of having these all saved on cards like this was so that I could link back to these cards when I'm doing my weekly planning. Alright, so going back to this workspace here, that was my curricula board. This didn't really change much other than checking things off, as we go through the curriculum. These, however, were the main parts of my weekly planning. So what I did is I made master boards. I have one master board for me to plan out our week. And then I was able to set it up to where my daughter could access Trello from her own Trello account on like an old cell phone I have laying around. And she could check off things as she got them done too. I should probably add that we stopped using this and I have not missed that part of it as much as I thought I would, but I'll get into that in a little bit. I'll go ahead and pull up my week master board. So this is kind of like a template for myself, how our weeks normally would look at the time that I was using this. So we normally school for 4 days. I would have, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then, Friday activities. I also had a list of notes for the week. This included reminders to myself for when I'm setting up my week, and also any assignments or activities that might span the week. And then books that we're reading aloud or that my kids were reading on their own. One thing I forgot to mention when I was over on the curricula board, let me go back to it. Trello has a nice feature where you can tag individual cards with colors. In fact, let me see, how do you make them? Okay, I can't remember now, but you can change this to where instead of just the color, you see the word and the color. But these tags represent, different things, different categories or reminders. So, for example, in our history column, I would tag things as having activity materials I would need to gather for that week. So if I saw a blue tag and I was planning for the week, I knew that I would need to gather some things. And then I also had an orange tag that told me there were books that I needed to request from the library. And so if I saw an orange tag, I would know I have not requested books from the library for that unit or that week yet. Back on this board, the labels are a little bit different. These purple labels are just to, that's how you do it. So these purple labels were to remind me of things I needed to do as I was prepping for the week. For example, this card right here is reminding me that I would like to add links to different cards in my curricula board here within these cards. So as we were going through school, say on Monday morning, and we were reading from Tristan Strong, I would open this up and it would have a link to the Tristan Strong book where I had listed out all of the questions and vocabulary words for that day's reading. So I would go to, I think it was here. Yeah, so the current read aloud was here. I would copy this card. Okay, as I'm hovering over it, this little thing shows up. So I would hover over it and press Command C to copy it. And then back on this board, I could simply press Command V to paste a link to that card would show up. So if I open this now, I have an attachment. It's a link directly to that card in a different board. So you could also manually go into attachments, Trello, and then search for it if you weren't sure where you saved it. But I found the copy paste thing to be much faster. I would just go across and paste, paste, paste. So now they're all linked to that card. This made it a little bit easier during the week when I had my phone in front of me and I had my list of what I needed to do open on my phone. You can only actually see one column at a time. So this just made it easier to quickly get to that card in a different board that had, our questions for the day's reading. Anyway, so once I did these things, these little reminders for myself, I would just get rid of this card. I don't have anything to check it off. I would just delete it or archive it. So I could manually go in here, archive, and then go and delete it. But it was simple enough just to press C on my keyboard while I'm hovering over it, and it's now archived. So if you ever made a mistake and you need to bring it back, you can come back and find the archived items here and put it back on your board or manually delete it. I never bothered because, it's out of here. I don't need to look at it again. So I would come in and, okay, that's just a reminder to copy and paste because it's faster. This is a reminder to buy materials for the following week's science, and here's a link to that card where it has my materials saved for each lesson. So let's say I did that. Requesting history books for 2 weeks out. Again, it has a link to this board so I can see, oh, we're in this one. 2 weeks out is going to be number 28, and I have not requested books yet, so I need to go in and find the books for that week to request at the library. So let's say I did that, and then enable rules for new board. So this part is going to get a little bit confusing. I don't want to overwhelm anybody, but this is the feature that I think I miss the most about Trello. They have a lot of automation features in Trello. So if you say do an action, it might trigger another action that just saves you time and organizes things for you. Let me show you an example. I don't want to throw too much information at you, but here is the automation section here. I'm going to open up rules, and so I have all these rules set up. This one is already enabled on this board. It says, when the due date is marked as complete in a card, move the card to the bottom of the list. So the trigger is marking the due date as complete. The action that it takes is moving the card to the bottom. And what that looks like is, I don't know if you noticed, but all of these cards have a due date, okay? If we have finished our read aloud for the day, I would check this, and then it would automatically trigger that response, so it moves it down to the bottom of my list here. It just made it nice to have this nice and clean up here, and I wouldn't have to scroll through things I already finished, or I wouldn't have to manually click and drag to move things down. So what happens is, when I have my master week and I'm setting up for our current week, I would go in here and I would copy my board. Let's just say this week for video. So you'll see it'll change here in a second. Okay, now it's made a duplicate. This is the copy of that board. You would have to go in and, I believe, enable, yeah. So when you make a copy of that master board, these rules are not enabled. So I want to enable that rule on this board so that when I do check that due date as complete, it will move down to the bottom. Alright, so in prepping for a new week, after I have enabled the rules, I can get rid of that card by hovering over it and pressing C to archive it. Then I just have left, the books we're reading for this week. So if we finish this book and we're in another one, I would need to get rid of this and then, copy over the card for the next book that we're reading. The way I have our individual days organized is we usually start with our group work. So we have our read aloud, and then anything we're memorizing or any poetry we're working on, we would do at the same time. And then we have our content areas like science and history. that we would do as a group. So those all came first, and I just have these cards as like a header to kind of separate the list. These cards kind of help break it up too. A lot of them are just things we're doing outside of the house, like a meetup or library day. Then I have all of the things that my daughter was supposed to do. And again, I have these labels. This means that after it's complete, so say we did that together and she did her activity, it would go down to the bottom, and then if this label is there, I know at the end of the day it's something I need to check and see that she finished it and, look at how she did on it. I also have labels for anything that she was to do independently. So she would say do her Michael Clay Thompson practice sentence on her own and turn it in. Once I knew that she finished that, I could check that off. And then I would know later in the day when I check my done list that I would have to go in and check her sentence to make sure she did it right. So those are all the things that she would need to do. This is about the time we would normally break for lunch. Of course, that's, not set in stone. And then she has her math. She would probably do that one with me. Copy work on her own. I don't need to check it. She has her loop activity. Sometimes I do need to check that. And then my son, again, has all of the things that he is going to do. Most of his are with me, but he had a couple things that were independent here, here, and here. And then this one at the bottom is just a reminder for me to check off that I have read the book that my daughter is buddy reading with me for this day's reading. I would check that off that I completed reading that. And then once I finished, all the things in one category, I guess, or under one heading, I would just click C again to archive that just to keep it cleaned up. Ideally, at the end of the day, we would have something that looked like Alright, so in an ideal, perfect world, this would be what I see at the end of a school day. Everything is done, it's all underneath this done heading, and I have nothing left above it. It's all nice and clean and uncluttered. Of course, it's not a perfect world. Let's say, we just didn't get to this, and I need to do it tomorrow. This is one thing I liked about Trello too. It was really easy just to click this, drag it over here, and put it under, maybe we need to do that first before we do the next part of Caesar's English. So it's really easy to move things around, rearrange them if you don't get to something or you want to do it early. Let's say she finished her math on Wednesday and did her test already. I can move it back if I wanted to and have it here and show that it was done that day. So anyway, I think you get the idea on this main master week board. Now I'm going to show you the master board for my daughter, and it looks very similar to my board, only things that she needs to look at, things that are just for her. On her board, I have a list here of things. These are reminders for me when I'm setting up for the week. So let me go ahead and make a copy of it like I would if I was planning. Okay, here it is. This is the copy. So say I'm setting up for the week. This is something I need to do. I need to copy cards from the curricula board for the actual activity she needs to do in Caesar's English. So I need to pull up my curricula board, and I'm just going to open that in a new tab, and then I don't have to click back and forth. So here's Caesar's English. This one, I started doing it this way, and then I realized it was nice to have, instructions for her that I could just copy and paste over. Anyway, so let's see. Beginning the lesson 4 would be done on Monday. So what you can do is copy that card like I just did, hover over the list itself, and paste. So instead of linking to a card in another card, that would paste this card I just copied here. It would just paste it at the end of that list. So once I did that, I would move it up to, wherever I thought she might want to have it here. And then write down the list here. The next thing she would do is the activities. hover over here and paste it, and now it shows up at the bottom. The reading and writing, copy that, hover here, it shows up at the bottom. And then the quiz on Thursday. There, so all of her instructions for what she's doing in Caesar's English on that day are here, just copied over. And then what I did is I actually would save those for my son for when he's doing Caesar's English by moving them over to his list here. They're saved here, same instructions, same everything, ready for him whenever he gets to this book. So a lot of them, like Paragraph Town, I did not need details on individual lessons, so I did not create extra cards, separate cards for that. But for this, it was nice having the separate cards with individual instructions so she can look at it as she does her schoolwork. So that is done. I can archive it or get rid of it. Update the book cover. If she's not reading this right now, I would change it out for the book she actually is reading, which, I can do that really quick. So, hover over, press C to archive it. Now I'm going to go back to my book covers board. This just has all the books that we are planning on reading. Either it's scheduled or it's an option if we have some time to pick a different book. So let's say she's actually reading this one. I'm just going to copy that card and then hover over this list and paste, and it will show up at the bottom. This is just to be pretty. Like, I didn't need the picture here. I could just type it, but I kind of liked having the cover there. Okay, so I did that. We can get rid of that card. Update reader page numbers. So in here, she would need to read, I don't know, say pages 20 to 30. So I'd update that for her. Now I could do that on each one and open up the card and edit it like that, or a shortcut is to come hover over the card and press E, and you can edit some things without opening the whole card. So say she needed to read
31 to 40, 41 to 50, and then 51 to 60, or whatever.
Okay, that's done. Enable rules for the new board. Again, whenever you copy a board, like from the master, you won't have those rules enabled. So I'll need to go into automation, open up the rules, and enable that same rule will now apply to this board that I just made. So before I enabled that rule, if I check this off, it's just going to sit there. But now, when she's finished with Grammar Town with me, it's going to move it down to the bottom for her. So I did that. I enabled the rules. And then now, at the time we were using Trello, these were things that she needed to do at some point during the week. So she could choose, when she did her copy work. I don't care if she did it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever. She did have dictation on the last day of the week. So she knew she had to do these sometime during the first 3 days of the week. So she could then, sign into Trello and then say she wants to do it here. She can move it to that day. And then she can rearrange things too. If she knows she wants to do piano first thing, she can move it up, or, however she wants to do it. This is just like a summary that she would do after finishing a book. So I left it there in case she was finishing a book. This would be the assignment. If she was still working on reading a book and she was not going to finish it this week, I would just archive it and get rid of it. So this would be like, what the board would look like when it's ready for her to start her week. I don't have a clip of it, but my daughter wanted me to share that she really enjoyed choosing a background for her Trello board, and you can do that in that menu on the top right of the screen. You just click menu, and then you can choose a background that will show up on the board. When this board is ready for her for the week, what I would need to do is share it with her. So the way I did that was to move it to the workspace that was for her. She had access to all the boards on her workspace by signing into her own Trello account. So I believe I was able to, go up here and just click change workspace, move it over to her homeschool for this year, now it is in her workspace and she has access to it. All she has to do is sign into Trello and she will see it show up on her like dashboard. You also can change that when you're making a copy of your master board. So let me go back to this master board is saved in my workspace for the year. But when I come over here and I copy it, I can say, you know, whatever it is, and then I can change the workspace when I make the copy of it. That's what I should have done, but there you go. It made the copy. Here's the duplicate with my funny title, and it is automatically saved into that workspace already. So I might be able to log out and log into hers so you can see what her Trello space would have looked like. Okay, here is after signing into my daughter's separate Trello account. This is her like dashboard. And so here is that same board that we both have access to. We're both members of this workspace. So she had to go into her boards and like accept it. So here's that one that I made. It would show up and then she would click join board. Now she's in and she can move things around and do everything she needs to do in here. I logged into my account because I want to show you one more thing. It's another automation feature that I don't think I showed you. So I'm going into automation, rules. Okay, so down here under due date, I had some other rules. This one says on the Saturday after a card is due at 12:30 a.m., so this is the trigger, okay? After a card's due date, that following Saturday at 12:30 a.m., so about midnight that morning, I guess, the action would be to move the due date to the same day next week. So what this did, and I didn't discover this until much later after starting Trello, what this did is it would automatically change all of these due dates on my master boards to the following Friday. And this helped so much. I was going in here and trying to figure out how to save a checklist, and then I figured out due dates were kind of like a checklist, and then I would have to go and change all the due dates. So once I discovered that rule, it made it so much easier. Now, after completing our week, I would go in on Saturday or Sunday, whenever I was planning for the next week of school, and all these due dates would automatically be changed to the following Friday. So that automation feature is really nice, and that is something that is not really, it's not really a feature in Notion. There's not a whole lot of like automation features, and that's one thing that I wish that they would do. I don't know if there's a way to do it and I just haven't discovered it yet. I do miss that feature, but it hasn't really been a big deal though. I've been able to work around it, and Notion, it doesn't really work like this. It's a totally different way of planning for me than how I was using this. So that's one thing that I like better about Trello, or I miss about Trello. One thing that I really, really did not like about Trello is, I don't know about you guys, but I get distracted so easily making things pretty and making them look nice and having the colors match and fiddling with these like images to be the cover of my card so I have a nice heading. That kind of stuff, it takes a lot of time, right? It was kind of a time suck for me. I suspect that I have some possible attention issues, and so that kind of thing was really distracting for me, and I found I was spending too much time like fiddling with it and trying to make it look nice rather than just using it, you know, like trying to move things around and organize them and make them perfectly where I wanted them. Whereas in Notion, it's all like database driven, so it's much easier just to go in, search for the thing I need, and not have to like fiddle with making it look a certain way. I got to where I really didn't like using a screen during the school day, both for myself and for my daughter, sitting there and scrolling through and clicking to-do lists and checklists and things like that on a phone. It was also kind of distracting. You know, I would get distracted by other things on my phone, notifications would pop up, or I would, go to check off one thing and then notice something else and start fiddling with it. So it was a distraction having a screen there in front of me. Again, Notion is also digital, so that can be a distraction too, but I feel like it was more distracting using Trello than Notion, if that makes sense. And my daughter too, I feel like maybe she was getting a little distracted by having this digital checklist. It was nice that I didn't have to, hand write out these things or figure out some way to relay that information to her. I didn't even have to remember because it's all here on a master list. But I don't know that that pro outweighed the con of using a screen-based checklist for our school day. Now, if you do need to coordinate with somebody, say you and your partner or spouse, you share in homeschooling, responsibilities, and you wanted to have one central location for all of the work that you do in a digital format, this might be a really good option for you because you can actually, in the free version, let's see, I believe I paid a fee in order to have, what did I want? I think I wanted more automation features. There was some reason why I paid the fee, but I'm pretty sure in the free version of Trello, you can still share boards with other people and have like a team workspace like I had here on this workspace for my daughter. It's considered a team workspace and multiple people can join and work on the same boards. So if you have a partner and you guys are working together to homeschool, you can have one board like this or one workspace that is shared, and you can both go in and check things off or make notes to each other. You can come in here and write comments like, I don't know, say my daughter had trouble remembering whatever poem, and you can write comments like that, and then other people can see those comments. So, obviously you want to communicate to each other, but you're not always going to remember to tell each other that if you have different schedules or whatever. So, it's a nice feature that you can share this with team members. With Notion, I don't think there is any way at all to share, not boards, but to share their workspaces with other people unless you were to pay for the premium version or whatever they call it. The free version of Notion does not have a way that I found to share this with other people. At first, that was kind of a con because I did not have a way to set up a checklist for my daughter, but I have a workaround that I think actually works better. So when I get to the next video and I show you all about how we use Notion, I'll explain how I worked around that and why I liked it better actually than having this digital checklist. I think that's pretty much it. There's really not a whole lot else to show you. There's a lot. Okay, there's a lot that you can do. You can go in here and link to Google Drive. You can have documents saved in here that it links to, and so you have a digital assignment, and you can link to all kinds of other things. There's so much you can do with it. It is really powerful and very visual if you're that kind of person. I think I'll show my book covers board one more time, partly because it's really pretty and partly because I didn't really show it very much. Yeah, I didn't organize this too extensively. I just have a list of our read-aloud literature, a list of my daughter's independent readers, and a list of books that my son was reading on his own or, reading to me. These are books that we finished. And yeah, I just organized it by whatever we were currently reading, whatever was scheduled to read at a certain time, and then some options that we could read that didn't really tie into a certain time in history. So if we had a couple of weeks that we could fill in with another book, we could pick one of these. Alright, so that's kind of the quick version, I hope, of how I was using Trello to organize our weeks. To organize the curriculum we were using and all the books we were reading. I hope that was helpful. If you have any questions for me, leave them in the comments down below. Be sure to like and subscribe. If you're interested in using Notion for planning or comparing Trello to Notion, check out my video that's coming up next week. I'll also share it in the description box below once I have it uploaded, and I will see you next time. Bye!